I'm going to be talking about writing as engineers. So I've actually titled my session Good Engineers Write. Good Engineers Write Code, Better Engineers Write. So let's just jump straight in. Code is how we talk to computers, right? And writing is how we talk to people. And honestly, the best engineers know how to do both. So writing is such an important but oftentimes neglected skill for engineers. And in this session, I would be sharing why it's important that engineers write. And I would also show you practical ways you can start writing, even if you don't see yourself or no one calls you a writer. All right, so let's start with why writing matters in the first place. I have 3 points, which I'm going to go over in detail, one after the other. But they are, the first one is writing clarifies thinking. The second one is it accelerates growth and it strengthens collaboration. So let's look at that. Let's look at each one of them in detail. The first point is clarifies thinking. So what does this mean in real life, in practice? A lot of times we don't realize how fuzzy an idea is until we try to put it into words, maybe explain to a colleague or explain to a friend, and then we'd be like, this was a whole lot more arranged in my head. We can't seem to get the words. This happened to me a lot of times. I'll be so sure I have an idea locked in. I have the next big thing of my head. And then it's actually time to talk about it, or it's time to share with someone. And then it all just gets mumbled up. I'm not sure how to really put it across. But one thing I've noticed is that writing forces you to slow down. Writing forces you to organize your thoughts. Writing forces you to put language to what you're thinking about. And you'd come to notice that in the process of doing that, you'll be forced to actually refine your thoughts. You'll be forced to actually think, to actually have a clear line of thought. So, um, just to recap, writing forces you to explain something. That writing helps you better explain what you're thinking about. Writing gives you language, gives your ideas language, and it forces you to organize your thoughts, right? So let's move to the second point. It accelerates growth. Another reason for writing as engineers is growth acceleration. So taking this personally, a major turning point for me was when I started writing and publishing online. At first, it felt like nobody would read it, or nobody would care, or no one was interested in what I had to say. I mean, this is software engineering. I'm a software engineer. This is a very saturated field. What do I have to really put out there that no one has said before? And it's possible that, you're saying what someone has said before. But what I've found out is that even though it's been said before, it's never been said to your audience. Even though it's been said to your audience, it's never been said using your language. Even though it's been said using your language, it's never been said in the way you'd say it. Even though it's been said in the way you'd say it, it's never been said at the time you'd say it. So, that whole idea of what do I have to say? Everyone has said this is saturated. There are a lot of things that negate that. So at the time that I started writing and publishing online, I realized that each time I wrote something, each time I published, I got feedbacks, I got questions, I got comments, I got reposts from people all over the world. And I got opportunities that I wasn't expecting. One article I wrote, I put out some time ago, actually opened the door to a conversation with someone who didn't know me, who came across my work online. And she was basically working in my dream job. She was doing something that I wanted to do a few years, along the line. And we just had an amazing conversation. And that conversation just led to so many amazing things that would never have happened if I decided that, someone has written what I wanted to write about. So yeah, I'm going to keep this to myself. So basically, when you put out your work, when you write your ideas and put out your work, even though you're not a writer or you're in a more technical field, what you say can meet someone that you don't know faster than you can. You can't really travel across continents to show everyone your work or that kind of thing, but an article you write online can meet the right people, can, start the right conversations and all that kind of things. And so at that point, the point where I wrote this article, I didn't consider myself a writer. I wasn't a writer, I was an engineer, living, working, and all of that. But I was just someone that decided that, you know what, I'm going to start sharing my ideas online. And that decision alone had so many ripple effects that led to amazing, amazing, amazing growth. So, recap, writing makes your expertise visible, lets people around the world know, hey, I think she knows what she's doing. She's writing about it. Hey, I think he knows what he's doing. He's writing about it. It opens doors. People will literally reach out with you to use opportunities like, hey, can you come work with me on this? Hey, can you help me put words to what we're building? Those kinds of things. And then lastly, your words travel faster than your code. I've said this before. You obviously can't go hopping around continents showing everyone your work. This is what I do, or this is what I'm thinking. But a blog post, an article, a book, anything can travel all around and, show people what you're thinking about, right? So we've discussed 2 points. The first point being it clarifies your thinking. The second point being it accelerates your growth. And we'll move to the third point, which is it strengthens collaborations. So now let's talk about collaboration. One of the biggest advantages that I found personally of writing, my favorite actually, is that it lets your work interact with people on your behalf. So let's put it this way. If in this era of remote working, asynchronous communication, working with people at different parts of the globe, you can't really be there. And, a colleague in the other part of the world might be working on something that you've worked on, right? And instead of that lack in communication, instead of, just hopping on, disturbing or that kind of thing, a document that you've written in terms of documentation or even informal documentation can be the answer for the issue that colleague is facing, right? So it makes life easier for people who are working on a project with you or who join a project after you. If what you've done or what you're working on as an engineer is properly documented, they don't have to start from scratch. Someone coming on to start a project after you doesn't have to get confused, doesn't have to start from scratch. They can build on what you've already done because of a proper documentation. And for yourself as well, honestly, it's a lifesaver. Putting your ideas down, putting your work down, documenting it is honestly a lifesaver because let's say you come across a challenge at work or you come across a tough problem and by some miracle you're able to tackle it, you're able to get the solution, you're able to get things done. You'd probably think, okay, I'm going to remember the details of how I solved this. You not remember exactly what you did to solve that problem, right? So having it written down in whatever shape, form, or size would actually keep that knowledge alive, even for you, not just for somebody else or to collaborate or anything, but for yourself. I called it your future self and your past self collaborating seamlessly because this way you have the solution to this problem written down. You can always reference it in the future. You can always tweak it to solve a similar problem that presents in a different way. So honestly, you can't go wrong with writing down your solutions, your ideas, and the rest of all that. So, recap, strengthens collaboration. We talked about writing, scaling better than meetings. You don't always have to meet up with your colleagues to help them out or whatever. You have your documentation, you have your things written down. They can always reference it even when you're not there or they cannot get in contact with you. I've also said documentation is equals to future teamwork. Someone who comes on a project after you can always reference what you've done, and it's almost like you're working together. Then I said writing is better than your memory. It's greater than your memory. You may not remember a peculiar solution weeks down the line, but you'd always have to go back. You'd always be able to go back to what you've written and reference it, right? And so how to start writing? That's the big question of the day, honestly. So let's look at it. This is great. I want to strengthen my collaboration. I want to clarify my thinking. How do I start? What do I do? How do I do this? So the truth is, you don't need to jump in and start writing a book or writing a viral blog post or, you know, whatever big thing you may be thinking. No, you actually need to start small. You need to start small. I'm sorry, I forgot to say this at the beginning, but I would be having a question and answer session at the end of this. I want this to be interactive, so I'm trying to rush through the slides so we can have questions at the end of this. So just bear with me a few minutes more. So you don't have to, like I was saying, you don't have to jump into the next big thing. You actually need to start small. The next project you push to GitHub, write a detailed README. Make it so that no anyone who picks up the README can have a good understanding of what that project is, almost as if they were communicating with you, they were speaking with you, right? No matter how small, no matter how big, write a detailed README for the next project you push. That is a step towards writing. You can write a bug report, every error you faced throughout all the stages of a project. Write them down, write the problem, write the solution, make a document of it. That's an example. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It can be a side project with friends. It can be a personal project. It can be something at work. It can be anything. And my personal favorite is writing what I call an accomplishment document. Every day we wake up, we go to work, we come back, or whatever, and it almost feels like days are going by, and if we think back, what did I do on the second week of June? I don't know. So what I do is each day, I try to do it each day, but honestly I don't. So let's just say each week, write down in detail everything you've done that week. Write it down. If you're a technical person like I am, an engineer, write it down. Write the things you've done. Write the issues you've faced. Write the problems you've solved. Write the solutions to those problems. And I think you find that by doing that, first of all, you get clarity on the things you've done. You are able to better keep account of the projects you've worked on and all that kind of stuff. So it's a way of documenting what you've been doing. And it's also a step to start writing. So, it's two in one. So I've said here, in the beginning, don't worry about who's going to read it. Write for yourself first. You don't have an audience. No one cares what I want to say. Write for yourself. Use it as a way to document for your future self. Use it as a method of record keeping. However way it makes sense to you, just start. And then I've said clarity over polish. Focus on being clear rather than being polished or being, using big words, using fancy words, using the exact perfect terms. Focus on getting information out there. Focus on putting things out there in a way that's clear, in a way that anyone who's reading it can really get meaning of what you want to say. And finally, consistency always trumps volume. Always, always, always. Because what really makes a difference over time, you find out is consistency, right? Writing little bits and pieces of things here and there regularly. Today, pick up with me, accomplishment document, all of these things, writing bits and pieces here and there would always beat trying to push out something massive once in a while. Always. It will always be so, because what you see is that over time, as you're putting things out, building consistency, it gets easier. And when something gets easier, it gets faster, it gets more enjoyable. So it's always going to be so, right? So major takeaway. Wow. As we wrap up, I would say that the main thing that I want everyone that's listening to me to take away is what I first said when I started. Code talks to computers, writing talks to people. You don't expect I mean, if you don't expect someone to really care about your work, if you can document down, right? Especially more technical things, you don't expect to just put your code out there. The best engineers that we know, they know how to talk about what they've done. They know how to send communicate with people about what they've done, especially through writing, because it's the preferred form of really, sharing technical things. So if you ever want to grow, truly grow as an engineer, especially even from beginner levels, right? You don't just wait till you're in a more senior position. Right as a beginner, the best way to grow, I've learned this, is to always put code and writing together. You don't pick one over the other, just try to put them and sync together. And I've put a little action there. So I didn't want this to just be a kind of theory session. You just listen and all. So I wanted everyone to try out something. I wanted to encourage someone this week or this weekend. This weekend, it's a Friday. This weekend, try something out, write and publish one thing. It doesn't have to be big, like I've said. It shouldn't be big. Write something small. Explain your piece of code. Document the work that you've done. Explain an idea you're excited about. Anything, write it in words. Write it yourself. I have to put that caveat because we're in the era of AI writing, ChatGPT write something up for you. Write it yourself. Put things in your brain down on a paper. It doesn't have to be perfect. It shouldn't be perfect, but it should be yours. If you like, send it to me. I'll read it, I'll review it, I'll share feedback. Because sometimes all you need is that first push to get started, you know, start putting things out. Right. All right. That's the end of my session. I was really quick with it. Thank you guys so much for joining, spending time for listening to what I have to say. Like I promised, uh, feedback about this. And of course, you can stay in touch with me. You can send me a mail, connect with me on LinkedIn, and connect with me online. So I would love to hear questions. Someone had their hand raised earlier. I would love to hear questions, comments, contributions from anyone. All right. Um, Someone said, how do you overcome writer's block? Well, okay. The way I think about it, one thing I like to say is it's only a writer's block when you think about it as writing. Like I've said, I don't think anyone stops for a second to stop thinking because they're having a thinking block or anything like that. Thoughts are constantly running through your mind. Ideas are constantly popping up. As they pop up, put them down. They don't have to be perfect by any means. They don't have to, they don't even have to make sense to anyone. A lot of people don't do. They try to perfect things in the bridge between ideas and writing. They try to make it perfect in some sort of way. The way it pops up in your head, put it down. It's as simple as that. So that way you eliminate a writer's block. You just transferring and your ideas on paper. And I don't think I've ever heard of an ideas block before. So, you know, just try to put things down. Don't make it perfect. Just get there, whatever. And then with constant iteration, you find that hmm, it's actually kind of making sense, you know? Um, Ala Mohammed said, when did you start the decision to write articles and why? And is it really useful? Um, I started writing articles that I published online last year, in December of last year. And boy, yes, it is useful. Like I shared, someone actually saw one of the articles I wrote and she reached out to me and she connected with me and I saw what she was doing. And it was actually where I saw myself in a few years. And we started having it, and I didn't know these things about her. And because of what I wrote and how she commented, we just, formed the conversation and she introduced me to so many opportunities. She's taught me some things. I've kind of taken her as kind of a mentor, just because I shared ideas and she resonated with those ideas. So I guess that could be a usefulness. And as to why, like I said, I was just at the point where I wanted to kind of spice up my career. I'm an engineer, I do a lot of technical stuff. But at that point, I was really transitioning into developer relations. I was transitioning into a more outward role, a more public facing role. And I needed a way to really, put myself out there, to put my ideas out there. And, I thought, why not start writing? It's just, a great thing you can do if that's what you're looking for. I'm trying to get through everyone's question before my session. If you can explain it, do you understand? Well, I think you mean if you can explain it, you understand it. True for humans, but misleading coming from AI. What do you think? I'm not quite sure I understand that, but the way I meant that was okay, this I would like to put up an example of college. By the way, when I was in college, I held a kind of tutorial group, right? So when it was exam season, it was the end of the semester, and we had to take assessments. People would come together to try to just make sense of what we've done that semester, make sense of what we've done just to get through. And I found out that one striking thing I found was even if I had studied the material. I felt like I knew what I was going to do. I knew what I was doing. I found out that when my colleagues and my classmates came to me to explain to them it's almost like I unlocked a new depth of understanding, right? This might not make sense if you haven't been in that position before, but giving language to your understanding helps strengthen what you're thinking about, right? I hate that I can't fully answer your question. If you can drop it again and really explain what you mean. I don't understand what you mean by true for humans, but misleading coming from AI. So if you can quickly you know, put that again, I would love to take that before I go. And then someone said, hi, Winifred. Hi, Taran Tilang. Hello. Please also share your thoughts about cross-posting. Um, by cross-posting, I think you mean posting on different platforms. I hope I'm correct with that. Well, in the era that we are with different platforms, it's, people try to throw things over here and there just to see where they can get their audience. You're writing a Medium, writing on a Substack, you're writing on your blog, you're writing on LinkedIn. Yeah, but what I would like to say is to have a kind of base or kind of have a place where you post the original content, right? And I think Medium does something like that where you could get a canonical link and share with other to share where that article was originally posted, right? So you can have your personal blog and put your content out there, and then also cross post to different platforms. It's great, obviously, because you get different audiences. People that are not on LinkedIn might see you on Medium. People not on Medium can reach you there, whatever. Now, but it's always good to have a base of where you kind of put where all your articles sort of originate from. I hope I've answered that. Yeah, I'm kind of running out of time here. Someone said, Miriam said, could you please share, I think all sessions are recorded, right? And they're going to be up. Miriam's so great with that. They're going to help us with that and, publish all of this. But yeah, I would love to share the presentation just so you can go through it and see what we've discussed. I guess I've gone through everything. If no one else has any questions, it's been so great talking with you guys, sharing a little that I know, personal experiences. Um, Everyone enjoy the rest of Medium Day. I know I would. Um, yeah, thank you guys so much. Have a very, very, very great day.